steps in preparation with this Omnibus 20x20 flight controller with OSD and this 2528, whichever I'm forgetting, amp 4-in-1 ESCs. Certainly enough power for it. I like that it has a direct interface connection here. That's pretty slick. And so, there's steps on calibrating the accelerometer and the rest of it. I'm not going to do it right here in this video. What we're going to do is we're going to go over to motors, okay? And the very, very first thing we want to do, since this is Bell Hill ES, is I need to initialize the motors and let the software know the ranges that the motors run. So what you do with this is, without the battery power on, you tell it that I understand the risks. I don't have propellers attached. All right. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to set the throttle to 100%, and then I'm going to plug the battery in. This will let it know the range. And that quit at the top, and then you take this all the way down to the bottom, and it's happy. And now what we can do on this is we can test the motors to see which ways they spin. Now I have all the nuts on here, so if I spin in the wrong direction, the nuts are going to come off. My prediction is that the ones that rotate counterclockwise, these ones here are probably going to come off. But let's see what happens. So motor number 1. And first of all, it's the correct motor. And that looks like that guy was unwinding. Let me check. Yeah, it's going backwards. I have it just a little bit, put some pressure on it. Yeah, so that needs reversed. Okay, so number 1 needs reversed. Number 2 needs reversed. Number 3 is running in the correct direction, I believe. No, it's not. It needs reverse. Oh, go figure. I got them all backwards. Yep. All 4 need reversed. Now, I could be tempted and move the wires around, but I'm not gonna. What we're going to do, real simply, is disconnect from here. I'm going to go over and launch Bell Hill Configurator. I'm going to connect, and then over here, way over, hopefully that's on the screen there, over here, read setup, and it's going to read all my ESCs. I see I have 4, and they're version 16.7. So things I like to do, turn up the beep strength. I've already done it for these ESCs, and flash the firmware to the current version, but the difference of how I had the prior motors and these motors, apparently each one of these needs reversed. That's okay. Whatever makes the motor spin the right way. Oh, these were reversed, and they need to go back to normal. 2 and 3. And 4 needs to go to reversed. Now that actually makes more sense. So in this case, I have 1 and 4 reversed. So I'm going to write that setup to the ESCs, and that will change the motor direction just all by itself right there. So what we're going to do now is we're going to disconnect again, and we're going to go test it. And to do that, we disconnect from that one, go in here, we reconnect to Betaflight. I'm going to go back to motors. I'm going to say, okay, yeah, I don't have any props attached, and we're going to test them again. So let's do number 1. Number 1 is spinning in the correct clockwise direction. Number 2 is spinning in the correct counterclockwise direction. Number 3 is spinning in the correct counterclockwise direction. Number 4 is spinning in the correct clockwise direction. Woo! It's all set up. Yay! Fantastic. This is looking really good. And that's it. The next things that you'll want to do after this is power everything down and then start to assemble the peripherals to your flight controller. Okay, the first step that we have to take care of is that on the bottom side of the flight controller board, there is a option to set the voltage that's available for the communication ports, for the camera and the VTX, and the OSD port. And you can choose between 5 volts and battery voltage. On my board, right now, the 5 volts is set, and so that needs to be changed to battery voltage. And just see if I can point with my big finger here. Right there. That little solder bridge needs to move over from the middle to the V rather than from the 5V. And we'll go take care of that, and we'll go to the next step then. Okay, gone ahead and soldered the bridge, or moved the bridge off. I desoldered it, so I had 3 pads, and then bridged it. So I have 2 pads there between the center and the V for battery voltage. All right, I've gone ahead and powered things up. I got my receiver here, and let's go ahead and set this up. First thing we're going to do is just make sure that the quad is working correctly, and when I tilt the directions and the rest, that it behaves in the way we expect it to. And I like to hit the reset Z offset. And I'm not looking at it in the right direction. My bad. There we go. Okay, we tilt forward or downward, upwards, right, left. Looking good. I'll do the calibrated accelerator later, just because I like to do it at the end and do it again. Ports, we do need to set stuff up. We had already configured the TBS Smart Audio on UART3, but now we want the Smart port here set for UART1, and I'm doing UART6, and that needs to be a serial port for the S-Bus. Going to configuration, the key points on that end that need to be set up. I always recommend motor stop for quadcopters. Some people don't, but I highly recommend it. Tune it to the highest D shot level or whatever that you could support. For this Bell Hill ES, that's going to be D shot 600. I like to use 8K and 4K. This could support 8K and 8K. I'm going to use 8K and 4K for my PID loop frequency, so it's a little aggressive. This has to be set to S-Bus in the receiver section. And we've already done the VTX and the OSD. I like the anti-gravity and dynamic filter turned on. I also like to turn off the armed and the USB so that it doesn't beep too excessively when you're working on it. That's very much, everybody has different feelings about all that. RSSI is through the Smart port, and hopefully we'll get that to work. It's been a challenge for me, the RSSI. I'm still figuring it out. Don't know everything, but I know how to set this up. Okay, power and battery. Onboard ADC is correct, and it is reading the battery voltages. The scale looks real good, but I will take a meter later and calibrate this. And if you have such a thing, you should do it too. Not expensive. Buy a multimeter or buy a digital meter online like on Amazon. PID training, PIDs, I'm going to leave the rates alone for right now and just use defaults. They're good enough, certainly for test and build up and fun flying. But lately I've been tuning a little more. But here's the key one we want to do. Let's set up the receiver. Okay, so, and this is the most important. If it doesn't work and come up, try another COM port. Check your wires. But this should work. Let's see, get it turned on here. And I do have it set up correctly. Throttle, yeah. Now, I have the channel map set for me on this, TAER, and that's actually the channel mapping from Spectrum and Tiny Whoops. Where I inherited, I've just kept that channel mapping. I kind of like it as all my own, and I just do it that way. I like to put the RSSI out on UX9. Verify that my switches are working. UX2, UX3, UX4, where I have them mapped on here, and it's all good. This is working, which is really super. Okay, so we got that one solved. What next? Next is we need to do the modes. And we already tested the motors. We know the motors are set up. Okay, so again, this is personal preference. Some people like to have an arm switch, some don't. I used to use the arm switch, now I don't. I like to use the throttle, right stick to arm, and yaw right all the way over to arm, and yaw left all the way down to disarm. And so I don't set that one. And what I set up is I put angle and horizon and also acro mode all on UX1 switch. And what I'll do is I'll put the horizon as the first default for the switch, angle is the middle switch, and acro mode with air mode on here. We'll take air mode, we'll move it all the way over to here. This is all on UX1, so that I get basically easy. Well, I have that backwards. Here we go. Angle, horizon, and then air mode. So easy, very stable flight angle mode to power up in. I'm defaulting in, probably I'll start just using horizon and acro. Don't like angle so much, it's kind of restrictive, but you know what, when I don't know if it's working right or not, I turn it on in angle mode. So for first test, absolutely. Okay, so beeper, I do mine on UX3, other people do it at different places. And you typically want to have this all the way at the high end so that it's the full stroke of the switches. And so I'm going to put this over here on UX3. Here's my air mode. Flip over crash. Neat one on that end of it. I have those universally. I'm using UX2 for that. And that also needs to be all the way over here. And last, I like to do a dead man switch on UX4. And that I can put right over here. So save it, don't forget to save. Now we have all that set up and the OST. So actually from here, the very next step is let's put it all together and then test it again. Alright, so I've put it all together now, integrating the pieces. Some details that I've done along with just simply mounting things is I installed a couple of tie wraps on the top of this monkey frame and ran the wires out there. I've added a buzzer because I like to have a buzzer to find it when I crash and I have to go hunt through the bushes. And all the rest, it's looking pretty sharp. I was going to do antennas on the arm, but I'm starting to lean away from it. I really like the antennas up on top. I'm going to need some reinforcement glue on this one. It's a little loose there. And so what I like to do is I put some Welders Pro rubber cement glue at these kind of points to protect them, and it makes them really, really crash tough. Just like I'll add a glue blob to this FPV antenna here somewhere along the way. Anyhow, let's turn it on, make sure it works. I just want to hear it do its deal. Probably tell me that my battery's low. Okay. Yeah. So it did it's steady. Now it's saying low battery. It's going into panic emergency mode. And I didn't hold this down long enough. I just wanted to show everybody that, hey, I got everything working here. All right, hey, thanks for your time. I hope this was helpful. I appreciate you taking time to listen to me.